Good morning. Welcome to chapter 23 of Get Wise with NCM. Once again, we're looking at chapter 23 of the book of Proverbs. And if this is your first time tuning in, go ahead and we actually have 22 videos ahead of this that walk through the first 22 chapters of the book. So you're welcome to still stick with this and see what's going on. The nice thing about Proverbs is some of them fit together in chunks where you have to kind of have the first chapter, and some of them you can read way out of order. Today's kind of sits within its own sequence of chapter 23 and 24, kind of piecing together a little bit better, more than other books. We still see kind of these one-offs of Solomon's wisdom that he passes to his son of, hey, do this or don't do this. And sometimes we see they fit well together and sometimes they don't fit well at all. And so we'll have a little bit of that today, but a lot of it kind of talks about the same theme. And so as we jump in, I want to start with this question of when has been a time you got advice to do something that you did not listen to. So go ahead and think about a time in your mind of when is a time that somebody told you to do something and it seemed like, this might not be the best advice, and so you did it and it did not go well. So go ahead and think about that for a second. Alright, so as you've thought about that, I also took some time and thought through an example in my mind, and something that popped in my mind immediately was when I was a little kid playing soccer. I was a defenseman. If you've ever played soccer or hockey or really any kind of sport that has a goal and you're kind of passing back and forth, one of the first things you teach people, especially on the defensive side, is never cross the ball in front of the net. Because what happens is if you cross across the middle of the net, then an attacker can get the ball and it's right there to score. So my dad told me not to do this. My coach told me not to do this. And I was like, but there's a wide open person. And so I remember in one of the first games, I did not listen and I passed the ball to my other defense partner. And it was immediately stolen and they scored a goal. And I was really sad. And I realized at that point in time that I should listen. What we see in today's chapter is Solomon is giving these wise warnings to his son of what to be cautious of. And I think just like in that situation, when you give up a goal in soccer, it's not the most fun feeling. Today's lesson that we see in this chapter is if we don't listen to King Solomon, we kind of get to the point where we realize we should have listened a long time ago and we were a fool for not listening. And so let's go ahead and jump in. The first thing that I want you to do is if you have a journal with you is go ahead and read through all of chapter 23 and just take notes, underline what sticks out to you, write in your journal what pops out. Try to figure out what is the central theme warning that he gives throughout chapter 23. So again, take some time. This may take 5 minutes, this may take 20 minutes, but take your time, read through it, and see what sticks out. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video now. Alright, great. I hope you were able to find what that theme was. Because as we look at this, I think we really see it's kind of bookended by 3 parts. One, it starts with be careful of what you desire to consume, really with eating or drinking. And then we kind of see a little bit of advice that's given in the middle of this, and it finishes once again with the same cautiousness of what do you desire, but then also who's your counselor. Are they a good counselor? Are they not? So the first thing I want you to look through is as we look at the first really 13 verses of this chapter, we see a bunch of do not this, do not this, do not this. So again, pause this video and look through what are those 7 do nots. And then maybe there's 13 verses, so the other ones are also things not to do. What is Solomon saying not to do in this passage? All right, so go and pause this video and look through those. Great, welcome back. We see over and over this idea of do not desire this delicacies. Man, it's hard to say. Do not toil to acquire wealth. By discerning enough to discuss. Do not eat the bread of a man who's stingy. Do not desire his delicacies. So we see this over and all over. Do not desire these things that that aren't in our space. And so I think this is important as we continue on, because it's going to really compare the difference between what does this ruler have and what does like the everyday person. What is the consequence of indulging in these things that we shouldn't have? And so the next thing that I want you to go ahead and pause and think through is kind of second question is, what advice is given to the son to follow? So you look at kind of really verses 9 through about 28, 29. What advice is Solomon giving his son to follow? And who should he listen to? So what advice is he given, and who should he listen to? So go ahead and pause this video and look for the answer to that question. All right, great. I hope you found that. The third question that I want to ask you before we kind of get to this final wrap-up point is in verses 29 and 29 through 35. We see this kind of common theme of who has this, who has woe, who has sorrow, who has strife, who has complaint, who has wounds without cause, who has redness of eyes. And we see the cause of this. And so the first thing I want you to do is, what are the sorrows from this verse? What do we see is kind of consequence? And then secondly, what is causing those consequences? So again, pause this video and look, what are the consequences and what are causing it? What causes the consequence? And go ahead and look for that. All right, welcome back. So as we look through, what is the causes, consequences? We see in verse 31, it says, "Do not look at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly, and the end it bites like a serpent, it stings like an adder. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart utter perverse things. You will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, like one who lies on the top of a mast. They struck me, and you will say, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. Do not envious of evil man." And it keeps on going, and this kind of where 24 bumps in with 23. But what we see is that this desire for wine or for alcohol, when that becomes an addiction, that it leads to destruction. And Solomon's advising, don't desire this, because it will destroy what you know, and it will give you this woe, this sorrow, strife, and complaining. And so as we look at that, I think this is a warning from Solomon, because if you remember, Solomon was both the richest ruler and the wisest ruler there ever was. His wealth was beyond means. And so if he's advising the warning of overindulging in alcohol and wine, there has to be something to that. So two questions that I kind of want to leave you on to think through to bring this all home is there's two verses. One is actually in verse 17. Let me go ahead and read that to you. It says, "Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all the day." I'll read that one more time. "Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all the day." And then the second one is verse 19. It says this, "Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way." I'll read that one more time. "Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way." And that's verse 19. So with those two verses in mind, I want to leave these two questions with you. When have you envied the life of a sinner, or somebody that's not necessarily fearing the Lord and walking His way? When you've envied their lifestyle, and what happened? Did you try to follow them in that way? Where did that lead? How did that happen? And so that's one question. The second one is, what ways do we direct our heart on the way? It talked about that in 19. And direct your heart in the way. When it's talking in the way, we're talking about following Jesus, following God, fearing Him, as we've talked about this whole time. That's directing our heart. So practically, as we look at fearing the Lord, how do you direct your heart towards the Lord? How do you fear the Lord in these times? What does that look like for you? And so go ahead and write your answers to both those questions and think about it. So thank you so much for tuning in. to chapter 23 of our Get Wise. We're kind of coming to this home stretch, so thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later. Bye.